It's Yulia, and this is Going Places, a show about fascinating places near and far, and the people who make them better. Welcome back to the show, everyone. This is your host, Yulia Denisyuk. Today, I'd like to share with you a conversation I just had last week in New York on stage at the WITS Summit, the largest gathering of women travel creators organized by the Wanderful community, and its CEO, Beth Santos. You might remember Beth as one of our podcast guests last season when she came on to talk about her 2024 book, Wonder Woman. The weekend I flew to New York, I was supposed to be in Jordan, floating in the Dead Sea, hugging my Bedouin friends in the Wadi Rum Desert, leading a group of travelers to this country I love. But my trip didn't fill. I only had one person signed up, which rendered the trip impossible. So instead, I flew to New York to attend the summit and to moderate a panel called Travel, Power, and the Role of Creators in a World on Fire. With my brilliant co-panelists, Janine Jervis, a communication director for Visit Jordan, who's also been on the podcast, and Dr Anu Taranath, a University of Washington faculty member, educator, and consultant on human rights, race, and privilege, we spent an electrified 30 minutes channeling the pain, grief, and frustration so many feel. In front of 600 people, I delivered a message that has been in my heart for the last few years. This is the message I want to share with you today. I also want to apologize to you for the quality of the audio. It's not the greatest, and normally I would not share it. But I thought the conversation was just too important, and so it finds its way to you in this form. Our panel got a standing ovation thanks to the message delivered by Janine, Anu, and me. And it could not have happened were it not for the space and the stage offered by Wanderful CEO Beth Santos, the Summit's programming director Ariel Goldberg, and the entire WITS Summit team. I hope many more organizations and leaders in the travel and media spaces will be brave enough to do the same. Now, without further ado, here's our conversation with Janine and Anu at WITS.
Thank you so much for such a warm welcome, Anna, and thank you everyone for coming to our panel. We're so thrilled to be with you here today with my lovely co-panelists, Janine and Anu. I could not have this conversation with anyone else, I think. We just want to ask for your grace and perhaps forgiveness. This is a big topic, and we're going to try to focus it in the time that we have. But consider this just an opening, a door to this conversation that we all wish more forums, more platforms, more travel organizations in the US and abroad to have, because this is a very important conversation. Yeah. So the way we wanted to approach it is we wanted to have an honest and raw and perhaps a vulnerable conversation about how each one of us is showing up and meeting this moment in time where so much pain and grief and despair is happening in the world. And we're going to take this through a lens of three separate but related spaces. A space of a creator, a storyteller, a journalist, a space of a destination representative, and a space of an educator and a consultant and somebody who works across industries, not just in travel but in others as well. And so that's how we're going to approach it today. And I want to start with my reflection on how I'm showing up in this space as a travel journalist who's been in the industry for 10 years and has a t-shirt. Yeah. The t-shirt is very important. I will get to the t-shirt right here. But I want to start with saying somebody here at this conference asked me at the beginning, how are you? And I told them I'm barely 91. And they thanked me for my honesty because this is a very difficult time for a lot of people around the world. And I think we need more honesty in how we show up professionally, because not having that honesty is what sort of keeps us disconnected from a lot of pain and a lot of injustice and things that are happening in the world. But so the t-shirts, I put this t-shirt on, or I made this t-shirt yesterday in Midtown Manhattan. I found this place that does same-day t-shirts, Princeton same-day t-shirts. And I went to them and I said, I need a t-shirt that says God. Because right now, in any public space, in any public forum that does not acknowledge the atrocities and the genocide that is happening in Gaza as we speak and has been happening for the past 75 years, is not doing justice. In the past 2 years alone, one child killed every 45 minutes. It's an impossible statistic to comprehend. One child every 45 minutes. More journalists have been killed in the past 2 years in Gaza than in all of World War II. And I'm deeply disappointed in the spaces that I'm traveling, which is travel in media. Because media is a space that has played a role in dehumanizing a whole swath of people. And travel is a space that has such lofty ideals. The real travel, because we want to connect to people, we want to build bridges. We believe in the power of travel, but travel spaces, again, by and large, have not been acknowledging none of this. So again, I want to commend Beth and the wonderful team and the WITS Summit for creating the space with the summit. So in the past few years, I've really struggled to rediscover my path. What is my path as a creator, as a storyteller, as somebody who, I need to change my bio, by the way, because that bio feels so irrelevant to me anymore. Somebody who works with all these publications, right, National Geographic, New York Times, the same publications that, again, continue that dehumanization process and continue the narrative that are not helping. One of the ways that I've been using sort of my platform, my expertise is both pushing for more stories and publications that I work with. Sometimes it's very difficult. They still don't want to touch, not just Gaza, they don't want to touch the Middle East region overall, which is a whole other problem, right? Because they're sort of painting the whole region with one swath. But pushing for those stories and pushing the editors that I work with to do that. And then also building my own platform, right, as a creator. And what I want to stress today is that we may feel very powerless by ourselves at the face of all this injustice and pain and suffering. But I want to remind us all that collectively we have so much power. And every single thing that we put out there, whether it's through stories on social media, whether it's through conversations with friends, whether it's through actions that are not even publicized, right? Whether it's donating, supporting, whatever. There is so much power in that, and we should not forget that, because that is how we're going to get through this together, right? Not forgetting that we have power when we are together, when we are collectively doing something. I also want to say that I've been looking for ways to fight inertia and apathy, and it's so easy to have that feeling right now, to feel like nothing that you're doing is making any difference. And that is how the systems that we're up against, that is how they get us, because we feel so powerless. So I've been trying to, in my own sphere of influence, how do I fight that inertia? How do I resist that apathy, right? And continue showing up with different ways, including wearing this t-shirt, right? I also want to say that I want to ask this question of everyone in this room, and maybe think about it as you're leaving the conference today. What is the responsibility of your heart? And this is a question that this week was actually, it showed up in the New Yorker by the writer Hanif Abdurraqib, who's an incredible American writer. And this is a question that he asked in this essay that I really took to my heart. What is the responsibility of your heart? We've been taught to be so disconnected with our human values and not bring our whole selves to our work, to our professional spaces. And that's also one of the ways in which the system keeps perpetrating all the injustices that we have. So think about that. What is the responsibility of your heart? I have privilege as someone with an American passport, someone who works in the travel industry, who can go to all these different places. There's so many people who cannot even step outside their town, right? So as somebody with that privilege, what can I do to help build those bridges and humanize people and share those stories and build those connections? I have more privilege than someone who maybe has different status in this country and is afraid about being picked up on the street, right? So we all have to have this sort of conversation with ourselves. How much are you able to contribute? And there's no right or wrong place there, right? We have to have that sort of negotiation with ourselves. But those of us who have that privilege, I encourage us to think about that and think about how we show up. I think I just totally blew through my time limit here, so I'm going to wrap up my session. But I also want to say that looking at the brave students at NYU, at Columbia, at all the universities across the United States who have been raising their voices as we speak, even this week at graduation, right? Losing their diplomas and losing the 4 years of their work. Seeing people like that gives me courage to continue speaking out, continue opening the door to this conversation in many spaces. This panel is not about Gaza, it's not about Palestine, it's about all of the different ways in which we feel challenged right now in the world. But Gaza and Palestine is a prison through which you can understand so many other pains, so many other injustices and things that are happening in the world. So with that, I want to turn it over to my co-panelist, Janine. How are you showing up in this space, in this moment of time?
I suppose some people they see or are allowing us at this space and this conversation. I would say travel is transformational, right? And my transformation, introduction to travel, industry on a whole was my interning with Jordan tourism. And this was 18 years ago. And I stayed with Jordan for 18 years, not because it was just a job or, it's a beautiful place, but it's because of that connection that it allowed me to have to the rest of the world. And I say that because I went to Jordan in 2007, fresh out of college, as a Jamaican island girl who had never been anywhere outside of Harvard. And I went on this journey, and this was not so long after 9/11. And so there was a lot of dehumanization of the Arab world and elites and, Muslims, and painting them as terrorists. And my introduction to Jordan was nothing even close to anything like that. Actually, in the 18 years that I go to Jordan, even now when I go back, and I'm going in 2 weeks actually, when I go back, I look forward to it because I'm at peace when I'm here. I feel a sense of peace. And it sounds weird because there's so much horridness happening in that region. How do you feel at peace? But it's because I have, had this deeper connection with the people here, most of which are actually, a lot of people, the population is Palestinian. And I've had nothing but hospitality, warmth. I have a family in Jordan, many families actually. And so that was my transformational introduction. And I use that as my guiding force into how I promote Jordan and how I work with creators, even though I'm communications director as my job, I'm also a tourist and a storyteller in my community, my space, in my family. And as one person, and like Yulia said, it can feel overwhelming trying to change the narrative because the role in my job is to challenge or kind of try to get over the noise of politics, right? And bring about the human side of a beautiful country and destination that everybody should visit. So I use my experience to guide me with working with creators like you guys because you are the storytellers, and there's no more powerful tool right now than social media and these platforms. And so when we as a destination are looking to work with creators, especially right now, and especially for a destination like Jordan, I have to look for people who want to go a little step deeper. Yes, we do want the beautiful photos and the Instagrammable moments and all of that. But beyond that, we have to have a deeper story being told about the people and the place. And the place that you're in, because it's an ancient place. It's a holy place. You know, not just in Islam, but it's also a holy place. It's a big part of the biblical history. And so, you know, when I invite journalists or creators, it's to tell that story. It's to, because you know the tourism is 15% of the GDP for Jordan. It employs most of the country. And so when we kind of just, do the surface and the pretty pictures, a lot of people see that and say, oh yes, Jordan is beautiful, it's so lovely, I'd love to go there. But right now, well, it might not be a great idea. It's not so safe. You know, there's so much going on over there. I'm not sure they like Americans, you know, with what's going on in the politics, you will feel threatened to go there. And that is a genuine, valid feeling. However, I think today we are more aware of this fear-mongering that is constantly pushed out in mainstream media and in Hollywood. Hollywood has played a really big role in demonizing cultures that are so beautiful, you know, from the Middle East to Africa to the Caribbean to Latin America, they casted out Kingston as the capital of the world, but I lived there part of the year with my son, you know, who's went to school. I travel to Jordan all the time. I've been doing it for 18 years. And so, you know, I think, so my role is to invite people, and I always look forward to seeing the transformation in the journalists and the creators that I bring to Jordan. You know, they come there not really knowing what to expect. All their families are saying, oh my gosh, why are you going there? You know, is it safe? You know, maybe you should think about putting it off. And I really give credit to those who still come, because I think that's what I want to leave you with today. What I want to leave you with is, don't, shun our destination or decide not to go because of what you see in the media or what people tell you. You need to go for yourself and see for yourself, feel it for yourself. Because when the people suffer, not the governments that are making the bad decisions, but the people, the communities, people's lives, their families. You know, I know that, for instance, ever since the war in Gaza started, over 30 hotels closed down in Petra. And Petra is a small little town, and it facilitates tourism just to the side. So without tourism, they literally have nothing. And so, like, not going to a place, the place then becomes economically distressed, you know, and it even ripples even further as a tourism board, because now I struggle to have a budget to work with creators, you know, and it's not because I don't want to pay for paid campaigns, and it's not that I don't think your work is valuable. It's because we literally have no money, no budget. And so what keeps me going is just be creative. And honestly, a lot of what keeps us going in the market is our relationships that we've made within the industry as well. So, yeah, I don't want to take up too much time to take up your time.
Thank you, Janine. And Janine and I share our love for Jordan. I've been going there for 10 years myself, and it's a beautiful place, and everybody should come and visit it. And it's absolutely safe. Devastating because it's so close to Gaza and Palestine, but absolutely safe. Thank you so much, Janine. Anu, I can't wait to hear how you're showing up at this moment in time.
Good afternoon. A lot of people have asked me the last 2 days, are you a creator? And not in the traditional way that many of you are. I create spaciousness. As an educator and as a facilitator, my work is to create space and spaciousness for us to gather, unpack, with rawness and vulnerability sometimes, and to stitch together a more honest and true version of perhaps ourselves, our communities, and the world. What I'd like to share with you in my few minutes today is some of what I see in my role in navigating a world on fire. Julia shares that, what is happening in Gaza and Palestine as a whole is a prism to see so much of how power is playing out these days. I absolutely agree. And it also depends on from what position one is looking. For each person and for each community, there is some prism that you are looking at the world through. For trans folks, many trans folks are just trying to get to the bathroom without trauma. Yes? Yeah. If you are in a family with a murdered Indigenous woman, what is happening in Gaza might feel a bit removed than the tragedy that has played out in your family and your community. I can say, and you can say, another 200 examples just at the top of our head of all that is playing out in the world, both close to home and far from home. And this is some of the reality that I grapple with when I'm in spaces. Julia shared that I work not only within the travel industry, but a lot of my work is in many other industries as well, in government, nonprofits, in higher ed. And some of my insights that I'll share today is what I'm seeing not just in this community, but in so many communities. We're not quite sure what to do with uncomfortable feelings. Yes, uncomfortable feelings make us uncomfortable. Who wouldn't want to swipe it away? Who wouldn't want to stick something back in your ear and listen to some cool music or a podcast or do anything, open the fridge, right? Uncomfortable feelings, however, is exactly the channel in which we can become a little bit more raw and vulnerable to ourselves and to each other. I'm not sure how to fix any of the many, many issues that are playing out in our communities without also having to grapple with a little bit of discomfort about what this means. Where did this issue come from? What is my role in relating to this? How is it that I perhaps don't have to think about it very often? Or how is it that I've goddamn been made to have to think about it every day of my life? Any of those questions will raise all kinds of alarms and discomfort in us. And so part of what I create and what I would like to offer more of are spaces in which we're able to hold steady in some of those moments of discomfort. There is life after discomfort, and there are tools and strategies to navigate our way through it with a little bit more grace, a little bit more dignity, and a little bit of less aloneness and more community. Julia also shared that none of these things that are happening in the world get fixed when you and I are operating on our own. Things only change when we are operating in conjunction and community and in solidarity with one another. And so part of our offering this afternoon is an invitation for you all to think about what are the networks that you are a part of, right? We've been hearing about the WITS community all weekend long, and this is a beautiful space. You all are connected to a range of spaces and places outside of this weekend's community as well. What kinds of conversations are happening? What kinds of conversations would your curiosity lead you toward more? If you could guarantee a little bit more safe passage through it. Okay? Not many people will very easily say, I don't care about the suffering of others. I haven't met actually anybody that would say that. And yet we're not quite sure what to do with these stories that can feel unsettling to us on a range of levels, right? So what is the responsibility of our heart? How do we hold some spaciousness for ourselves in the middle? One other thing I'll share with you is that this conversation of how are we showing up today, I show up both close to something and far from something. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. What is happening in Gaza or a range of places in the world did not start today or yesterday. There are hundreds and thousands of historical and social and economic and militaristic reasons that have created the world the way that it is today. And when I come up against complicated grief, tragedy, things I'm not so sure how to process, I'm just one person. I don't know how to process all this. I don't know what to do. I don't have easy answers. I don't have a wand to fix anything, really. One of the ways that I kind of try to keep steady in the midst of this, right, is realizing that I am here in this particular moment, and we have a long history that precedes you and I that has created the world it has. That doesn't necessarily absolve me from the responsibility of my heart or my right actions, but it does give me a little bit of pause to remember I did not create what is happening. I cannot be solely responsible for what is happening. Okay? That to me gives me a little bit of spaciousness for me to step back, take a breath, enjoy people in my life, wear some cute earrings, kind of show up in my, I hope, joyous and light self. And then I get close to an issue, right? So I need to step back every now and then I get real close to an issue where I feel everything that needs to be felt. Because without feeling all that needs to be felt, we're abstracting everything. It's just abstract, right? So how do we feel deeply, but how do we also pull back? And it's that movement back and forth, that to me gives rise to a sustainable movement of solidarity across difference. I'm not in Gaza. I don't know what it's like. I read and I listen and I try to pay attention, but that's not my life. My life is here right now with you. This is my life. And this word "and" is so critical for us, right? So this is my life. And I want to be in right action and solidarity with a range of groups and issues that I care about. And for me to be in right action and solidarity, I'm going to have to go up close and I'm going to have to take a wider lens. Back and forth, back and forth. There's a lot more to say on this. We invite you to stop any of the three of us during the rest of the day and talk more. Because this all has to do with and responsibility of the heart. Thank you.
There's a lot more to say. And before we close this snippet of a conversation today, I want to just have a very quick discussion about activism. Because this is something that even this weekend, so many people came up to me and we had these conversations. And, you know, there's a lot of concern for safety, censorship, all those things. And the word activism itself has sort of been co-opted and codified, for the word that you mentioned earlier, to feel like this is something that others do. I'm not that, right? And to be honest, I haven't felt like an activist for most of my life. So let's talk just real quick before we close about what is activism and how it can show up in people's lives.
Activism to me is caring when nobody's asking you to. Activism for me isn't about holding a placard. It's not about a particular post that I make on social media or not. It's about caring just because I am expanding my humanity. And in that definition, I think we can really rethink what we understand activism to mean. It is that responsibility of the heart.
For me, my form of activism, I think, is through this job, with Jordan. Because I use Jordan as an example every time, in every conversation I have an opportunity to have with my family, with my friends, with anybody that I meet. But they ask me, what do I do? I say, well, I work for Jordan. And they're like, oh, Jordan, and then that starts a whole conversation. How did you end up in Jordan? That's how I am able to change. I feel like I've changed many minds, or at least injecting some level of, maybe there is more, or maybe I should not stereotype and just, brush everyone with the same stroke of a brush. So, I do that through my work, and with, I think my form of activism too is travel, right? In traveling, you open up people's eyes to the place, and just by talking about the sharing and trying to counter the stereotypes that people are so ingrained in society. So yeah, that's my way. I try to push out stories about the people of Jordan. There is so much coverage of the science that I focus on the people in everything we do. In our newsletters, in our blogs, and so forth. I try to tell those stories that people wouldn't think of, just to change that mindset.
That's beautiful. And for me also, activism is caring for people. It's being human, actually. Thank you guys so much. Thank you for sharing this space with us today. Again, this is a huge topic. We could have said so much more. But we want to thank again the Wanderful community for opening this door and creating this space for us, and hopefully having more conversations, right? This is just a start. And we hope that there will be more conversations like this, more raw, honest conversations like this in Charlotte spaces all over. So thank you so much.
I was sharing also that this book, Beyond Guilt Trips, Mindful Travel in an Unequal World, is a book that I read. It's outside for sale, and the exciting books after. And if you're looking for a resource to think through some of these big topics that the three of us have spoken about, this might be a good case. Thanks so much.
Just before we leave the stage, I just want to leave us with this poem by a Palestinian Druze poet, Samit al-Qasim, which I first heard from my friend and peer and colleague in the travel industry, Aziz Al-Busara, who is an amazing Palestinian peace activist. This is a poem by Samit al-Qasim, Palestinian Druze poet. When my killer rifles through my pockets, he will find 3 traveling tickets. One to peace, one to the fields and rain, and one to the conscience of humankind. And I beg you, my killer, do not ignore these things. Do not waste these tickets. Please, I beg you, my killer, take these tickets and travel. Thank you.
Going Places shares stories that help us imagine a better way to live, create, and travel. We are located on the traditional unceded Anishinaabe homeland. Our lovely new theme music is Altercations by Matt Nicholson at Big Score Audio. Our editor is Luciana Boss. We are reader supported. Take care and safe travels.